Right. Welcome, everybody. So this is our remote school committee meeting. I'm making sure that I'm hearing some background noise, so I'm trying to see.
Definitely have some people waiting.
Yeah, someone's definitely.
It's almost like a delay.
It was an echo
Yep.
actually from.
Yeah.
Colleen, from-
Oh, someone must have realized, and I didn't see anyone not on mute.
Oh,
I still hear it a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Oh, was it Lydia?
let's see. Nope.
Almost sounds like her back. Oh, she's off.
She's on mute right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. We had this good, and then all of a sudden, once that we could let everyone into the room, we're hearing some background noise.
Why don't I want me to mute everyone and then unmute?
Yeah, do one at a time maybe and see how that helps.
I'll do that. And unmute.
I'm not sure.
It's one of
Colleen,
the
when only you were. Say it again.
I wonder if it's one of the phone calls. We have several people who called in.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Well, we can just make sure people understand and try to mute.
It's like a delay, like when you call into a radio show.
Yeah.
They always
right,
tell
well-
you that. They're like, turn your radio off because you're running a little bit ahead of the actual broadcast.
Better now.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So thank everybody as we are continuing to figure out the technological issues that come along as we're working remotely. So what we are trying to do is folks that are in the meeting, we have our video and our audio on. We're just asking everyone else to have their video and audio are off so we don't have that ambient background noise. And then to ensure that everyone can see, like we pop up that so you can see the video of us as we're speaking, because it's just more difficult to follow. There were so many squares. So if you do, it does sound like we're in good shape right now. We appreciate that we're here. I'm going to say then that we're starting at 6:33 p.m. and we're going to, by remote meeting protocol, we're going to start by roll call. So I'm going to ask each of you to just state your name, that you're here. So Bethlen Houlihan here.
Ray Branley here.
Carl Hogan here.
Natasha Rivera here. Lydia?
Lydia, are you here?
She looks here. I don't know if
does.
She's frozen.
Yeah.
I think we froze her.
Okay. We'll give her a moment to hopefully be able to respond.
She
had
looked
to
like
go
she
out
was
and
in
come
deep
back in.
thought for a moment there. Like if she was
Trying to
might be
decide if she was here as an existential
really here.
question. No. All right. Well, we'll see here. She's coming back on, it looks like. So hopefully this will work for her. So as part of this meeting, let me head over to the agenda so that I can talk to you all about. Lydia, you came across kind of like a technical mumbo jumbo techno. So try again.
That's me, Lydia Clancy here.
All right. That was a little better. We'll see how it goes. Ish, yes. It may be
I
a
wonder
blip.
if it would be helpful if she called in through the phone instead of did video through a computer.
I want to
Again,
try
apologies to everyone that's joining us remotely as well. We did all hop on early.
No, that won't work tonight.
Lydia, do you want to try muting?
It comes across as really choppy. It's your bandwidth in the Wi-Fi in your house, probably.
You sound like you're drowning. Do you need a life preserver?
All right. Lydia, want to try again?
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can.
That's
Yes.
much
Better?
better.
Yes.
All right, so the
Great.
thing is, it might, you might
Now she's gonna need to call in.
Yeah, call in.
Either that or take off her video.
Yeah, we can see if that helps. Now speak. Lydia, say something now and let's see if you sound better when your video's
Well-
off. No. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is hope that Lydia is working that out, and if someone's able to text and provide her a little support, that might be helpful.
Okay, and
I feel like
Miles
we
on a conference
should.
call, so
Say it again.
now can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Okay, very good. So we're going to continue.
Except now she's muted. Oh, no, she's not. Sorry, Nathan was. Sorry, I was looking the wrong side. We're good. All right.
Okay.
You want to do the
All right.
minutes?
Very good. Well, first I need to state that we are recording this meeting just so that folks are aware. Additionally, you will see in chat on the agenda as well that if we are asking folks while we're doing remote meetings if they have any citizens comments, to please submit those to the chair before, we'll still say 6:45 since that's on the agenda, but to bhoulihan@maynard.k12.ma.us. So I would then read those off during the citizens comment period, and that is how we will do citizens comment. You'll also see that information is in the chat box for anyone so that you can be aware of it. So that's it. So now we're going to move to approval of prior meeting minutes.
Bethlen, can you hear me?
I can.
Is it possible for us to take citizens' comments out of order and have it after the budget discussion?
That would have to be a decision that we all vote on. So we can definitely roll call vote on that, discuss it if we want to do that out of order.
I make a motion that we move citizens' comments to after the budget discussion.
I second.
What does
Any discussion?
What does that mean for like the time frame that we're giving people to send email to Bethlen?
It's a very good question. I think that it. Go ahead,
Would they be
Lydia.
able to just continue to send you questions extended?
Yeah, I mean, Bethlen received emails up until citizen comment and even waited for some during citizens' comments in previous meetings, so I don't see why that couldn't still happen.
Bethelyn, are you willing to take citizens' comments extended longer if you get emails and share them?
Yeah, it's no problem to take a look and see what people are saying. Like that's fine. So what that would mean is that we would need, just to be fair for folks, I feel like we should kind of give a guideline for when we think we're going to do that. So
Yep.
I got to go back to, so,
Do you
If
want
we
to do
take
it,
that on-
Lydia, after the Green Meadow roof update, or where we would normally have a second one before we go into members' comments? Is that what you're thinking?
I didn't have a specific slot in mind. I just know that people will probably have comments after the budget discussion. And I think we should allow for those.
It might be helpful
Basic-
also to, just to frame that we will be having a public hearing also to allow for additional, on May 7th, right?
Oh, that's
Um,
true, yep.
yeah, and even just this week, I mean, we got several comments that people made via email. They felt more comfortable that way. And in fact, they were like, this is how that's how their preferred method of being able to share what their particular comments were. So that's always an option as well for folks to send something at any time via email. But in any case,
Yeah,
we
if
can
people
move it.
wanted to do it, right, we could just transpose the citizens' comments in the budget update, because it wouldn't be a
Yep.
bad thing to hear some of the comments now ahead of time,
Yep.
ahead of the May 7th.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
So
that's,
we're
I think
looking
that's really valid.
So right now, I'm just trying to do the math. So that would be like around, so 6:50, so that would be around 7, let's say around 7:10 at this point, based on where we are right now. No, wait, 7:15. So it will be after, so if what we're saying is it'd be after budget update. So we'll transpose those 2 agenda items, and then that will be around 7:15. So I would take a roll call vote unless there's any further discussion. So Mary Branley,
Yes.
Mara Hogan,
Yes.
Natasha Rivera,
Yes.
Lydia Clancy,
Yeah,
Bethlen Houlihan, yes. Okay, so we will switch those. Thank you for having that discussion. All right, very good. So let's just move right into the minutes next. And for that, we have 2 sets of minutes. We have minutes from January 16th and minutes 2019. I'm sorry, 3 sets of minutes. February 3rd, 2020 and February 13th, 2020. So I will, if we could entertain a motion in advance, just depending on if folks have edits on any in particular, revisions on any in particular. So January 16th, do folks have changes?
No.
The only thing I noticed was, at least on the name of the document, says 1/16/19.
Oh yeah, good point. Because I was going to say 20 and then I went with 19 because that's what it says. Very good. What about February 3rd, 2020? And then February 13th, 2020. All right. So noting the change to make a date appropriate, I would enter accurate. I would entertain a motion to actually, without objection, we could approve these minutes and just move on if folks are okay with that, unless there's objection.
Yeah,
Okay,
do we need to do a roll
very
call
good.
for that though?
I think that because it's without objection, being able to just continue with it, someone could state verbally that they did not want to do that, and then we would have to do the roll call vote, or continue with each one individually and do roll call for each.
So are you saying that we don't have to approve them then, because we're just going to move on, or we still do have to do a vote?
So you can approve without objection. You can approve.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve January 16th, February 3rd, and February 13th meeting minutes without objection.
I second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. So now since you made a motion, we're going to go through a roll call vote. So, Mary Branley,
Yes, it's just as
Mara
easy.
Hogan,
Yes.
Natasha Rivera,
Yes.
Lydia Clancy,
Yes.
Bethlen Houlihan, yes. Very good. Thank you. All right, we can discuss later about, I can explain later about without objection and how that works. And-
Sure about within the remote setting, if that was my only question, but I think it just changed.
my-
Yeah.
Yeah, for minor things, I don't think it's an issue, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. And I can just double check that too. So, all right, so now we're going to move into chairperson's report. I am been trying to keep this pretty truncated given everything we have going on, but seeing that this is continuing for a long period of time, there are things that we need to talk about. So we we've been moving into our second week of remote learning, and there have been tweaks that have already been occurring. And I'm sure that in chairperson's report that we'll see that, I'm sorry, I'm the chairperson. And the interim super's report with Mary Jane, she's going to speak more to that and report out tweaks that, just the tangible tweaks that I can speak to, where we saw that Fowler and at Green Meadow, they decided to focus on one special per week and lay that out a little differently. And there were some other streamlining things that were occurring as well. And this is obviously an ongoing process. One thing I know that I give great accolades to their teachers that are finding ways to connect and meet with their students and doing some videos to present what they're doing, that are trying to do little meetings every day. And while I recognize that's not something every teacher is comfortable with, I just want to recognize and acknowledge the way in which it's, from what we're hearing from the community, how all those kinds of things are working, particularly as we're moving into even longer term with this. The Board of Selectmen had their remote meeting on April 21st. So last night, the FinCom has just had a remote meeting. They have another one coming up on April 27th. You'll see later on, we're going to be talking about a pending joint meeting. We're also looking into when we will do a tri-board meeting, all members between among the BOS, the FinCom, and the school committee. And again, to discuss where things are at in this ever-changing economic environment right now. There was just something of interest. I thought the Mass Association of School Committees shared an MIT report that suggested that as much as there are many things that we're working out in remote learning for, in Massachusetts, we are second in the country for promising practices in remote learning. And they had criteria that they followed. They did like a first pass at what states were doing. And I just thought that that was worth mentioning, that there are so many criteria that we were meeting, and that is a good sign for moving forward as we continue this for the rest of the year, as we've all heard at this point is going to be happening. And I also want to speak to, just give accolades for again, there's just so many things that everyone is stepping up and doing each day. There's been excellent communication from Green Meadow that was shared out by Fowler colleagues as well about families and being gentle with ourselves in these times. And really taking care of our families first. So I wanted to mention that, and that doesn't take away the stress of this for everyone and trying to, the real tension each day of trying to figure it out. But I thought that was an important reminder to ground us all. I guess then we've had the MSBA reaching out, and there's more that's going to be unfolding in relation to that, and that I'm sure will come up in the context of tonight's conversation as well. And I think that that's all that I wanted to say, unless there was anything kind of larger picture that people feel like I want to make sure that I mention.
Administrative Assistance Day.
Oh, thank you. I did want to mention that, but that came in after I did my notes yesterday. Thank you. Happy Administrative Assistance Day to everybody. And we have right here Colleen, who is a rock star. So thank you.
And happy Earth Day too. I think that's the other.
Oh, yes. Those go hand in hand.
Yes. I guess 2 days ago was happy 420, but I don't know if many people celebrate that, so.
Thank you.
Happy
All
Earth
right, very
Day.
good. So I'm going to move now to the interim superintendent's report. Take it away, Mary Jane.
Hi, everybody. Just want to let you know some of the things that Bethlyn talked about. I was going to mention a little bit, but as you know, the school is closed for the rest of the year. So now we are entering phase 3, according to Governor Baker, which will be, I guess, firming up our remote learning plans. He's going to be providing, the Department of Ed will be providing guidance to districts at the end of the week to make sure that we have additional resources and additional, what's the word I'm looking for, guidelines as far as remote learning plans. So our teachers have done a really good job so far. We have tweaked a little bit at Fowler and at Green Meadow, again, as Bethlyn said, as far as shortening the specials to once a week, which has made a big difference. We have teachers really on the scope of, some are more comfortable doing face-to-face, others are not. So we're really trying to help the teachers that are interested in doing more of those things. So we're working on some PD with them as well. One of the things phase 3 is going to talk about with this closure is graduation, how people are going to start collecting their personal items, students and staff, really looking at some of the summer programming and what next year's going to look like as far as, coming back to school. So those are some of the things that we're going to start focusing on. The high school has been working really diligently trying to create a plan for the seniors and the upper class and the other classmen to really talk about GPAs and grading and such. So they've been doing a really good job moving forward with that. So there's a lot to come, and hopefully we'll get more guidance from the Department of Ed on this school building project update. The MSBA itself has been closed since mid-March, but they're still moving along with their project. So that being said, we got 2 pieces of information from them called the initial compliance certificate that should be in the folder, the school committee folder, that needs to be signed by Bethlyn. That specifically states that to demonstrate that the district's understanding of what the MSBA's program entails. There's no commitment. It just means that you're understanding, what MSBA timelines look like, what you're required to do, and things like that. Again, this has to happen. A lot of these things are contingent on town meetings, but these are the first steps that have to happen. It says you're willing to move forward. So I put that in the packet, and you can take a look at that, Bethlyn, and share it with the school committee. That is one of the first things, and that is due by June 1st, so we'd have to come back before June 1st to get that to them. So I've included that certificate. And we also have to establish a school committee building committee for Green Meadow. And that is also due on June 30th. I've attached that form as well. A letter will be sent to families by the end of the week asking for people to serve on the building committee. We will, there'll be parents certainly invited, but they do have pretty specific people they're looking for to fill some of those roles. For example, they're looking for an engineer, they're looking for, money management and things like that. So some of those things will be, all be sent out to parents. And if everybody has those skills and qualifications, we'd love to have you, but we do want parents to contribute and be part of the process as well. So that
Mary Jane,
Yep.
Mary Jane, can I just add for public awareness, because I know the public understands we have a Green Meadow Future Committee,
Yep.
but that the understanding which the Green Meadow Future Committee is aware that there's a very prescribed formula for a building committee, that they are aware of this process. So this is not in any way minimizing or anything like that. They're aware, they're on board that this is a next step in the MSBA process. I don't think the public has that full understanding, so I just want to make sure that that's clarified publicly.
No, that is a good point, Natasha. We'd actually talked about that when we received the documents. I should have said this. So that is a good point. Yes. Doesn't mean that people on Green Meadow can't participate, but again, there's very prescriptive roles. So that's important.
Oh,
Okay.
I've got a question about it.
Yep.
If we
Sure,
don't,
yeah.
I'm looking at the different roles, and what happens if we don't have people step up to fill those positions? I guess we start recruiting, right? 'Cause
I would
there's
say
some
that's
that-
what we would have to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things are given, like, for example, the school business manager should be there, the town administrator's there, they want a couple school committee members, those are prescribed. But, certainly, we can certainly ask people if we can't find people who fill some of those roles. I
Now
don't
that we
think
have a case manager, can't we just ask them? I mean, it seemed like their email today was really more about, working together, through these kind of random hurdles
Mhm.
that we might have as a district anyway. So
Yeah, exactly. I think that, everybody's being much more flexible nowadays. They still want to adhere to the timelines and the grant information because, again, that money has already been earmarked, and I don't think it's being taken away, but they're giving a little more flexibility in how moving this stuff forward. But I do think that they're not going to change the timelines, for example, move us into the next area. I don't see that happening, but who knows? That'd be something we have to certainly look at. So the district administration and the MEA have been holding weekly check-ins, and I've been very happy with those check-ins. I think we've had a great relationship. We're discussing the MOU and the remote learning plans, and I have to say, everybody has done a remarkable job stepping up to the plate and really becoming proactive and active with these lesson plans. I mean, I know it's not ideal. There are a lot of people who want more. There are, but we are really proud of what work we're putting out there. So I do need them to be aware that we've been having meetings, we're discussing this, and we're continuing to tweak as we move around. One of the things we're having conversations with, I had a meeting with the president today, is about teacher evaluations. So that's something we're looking at with the union right now to see how that will be impacted with the new guidelines, and how our current plans could have effect on the future for teachers. So that's something we're looking at as well. On the meetings have been collaborative and collegial, and I've been they've been very wonderful to work with, so I appreciate that. We talked about feedbacks from one of the discussions from last week, was about feedback offered from families about specials, and that's where we came up with the MEA and ourselves to talk about how do we make some tweaks to the remote learning plan, which came out to be special just once a week. So that was one of the things that we discussed last week. We talked about feedbacks to the staff and to families. We decided as an admin team that, I know we were going to said we were going to put something out this week, but we thought maybe waiting 2 weeks in to see, after we made some tweaks after the first one, if we'd have a different result. So we'll be sending that feedback survey out the end of the week. And then we'll be sending a survey out to staff. I think it's also the end of the week, both of them at the end of the week. So both these surveys will come back. Green Meadow did a little survey with their students to see how much time they were working, and Dan Costello shared those results with us today, and it looks like the kids are running the gamut from working 2 hours a day to some working none at all. So that was interesting feedback that we're going to continue to look at. Spanish immersion update. There's no lottery held for Spanish immersion this year. There are more seats than people that signed up for Spanish immersion, so that's something we're definitely going to look at moving forward. Maybe
was it still the 21 that had done it, that had signed up originally, or do you know how many students?
21 was the original, right? We have 25 seats, and it's 21 was the original.
So
yeah,
it's probably the same. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. We have not increased, but so there is, and that's why there was no lottery. No sense holding a lottery if everybody has a seat. So we did not do that. Just to announce, Carol Gahan is retiring effective July 31st. So she did tell us, and she's notified her people. So Carol will be leaving, as I said, July 31st. We will be posting the position early next week. Colleen and I talked a little bit about that. Monday, we will be posting for the Director of Pupil Services on School Spring. That position will be, that search committee will be run by Charles Gabron, and he's asked to chair the committee. So that is the first step. So we have a little bit of time on that one. School business manager, we already have 10 applications in, and May 1st is the deadline for that. Oh, I still got it wrong. Jennifer Goddard will be chairing the search committee for that as well, for that one. So that's what we have at this point as far as updates. I've been attending a lot of meetings from the commissioner to the transportation secretary to the school business managers. So there's been a lot of meetings and a lot of conversations around budget and opening next year summer programs. So all the districts are working together to try to come up with a cohesive plan together. So hopefully we'll have things for people to share in the next couple of days to see how we can move forward. That's really all I have. It's just been all hands on deck for the last couple of weeks, and it's been an amazing transformation. A lot of our staff
Mary?
now have, yep, go ahead.
No, Mary Jane, I wondered if you had any update on the kindergarten screening and how that was going to.
I don't have an update on that. I can bring that next time. I didn't even ask, so I will put that on my list. One of the questions we're working about for kindergarten, honestly, is trying to, I could have said this in my update, is really trying to how to collect like the information you need for physicals and such like that. So that's something our nurses are working on right now because they're very worried about the HIPAA laws. So that's something that we're looking at right now. So I don't have any information on the screenings right now.
That reminded me about, you said the nurses too, about students, now that we have the prolonged closure, being able to pick up their medicine, their medication and stuff.
Yep. And that we had that discussion today with the nurses about that. So we will be putting information out that hopefully I'm hoping have that out by the end of, by Friday to see how we can get the students to come in and get their things for that. But as far as the medication, the nurse talked about that today with Colleen. I believe they talked with Colleen about that today, and they were working on a plan for that. I know that there's some
Excel and staff. So they have medication as well for kids who are doing aftercare. So I just want to make sure that we can make sure that that's coordinated as well with how that best, because I know personally my child does as well. It's a requirement, but might not just be one set of medications from the nurse.
No, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about the Excel, and I actually am supposed to get back to Lois. I'm supposed to have a meeting with Lois at some point tomorrow. So I will talk to her about that as well.
And she's
Okay,
in
and
the
she wants
audience
to-
too, so she's
She
here.
is.
Yep, she's here, yeah. So she's here
Yeah,
in person.
Yeah, so I do have to talk to her tomorrow about something else, so I will certainly, we'll talk about that as well. But no, the kindergartens, I will bring that up at the next school committee meeting. I'm writing that down. I actually haven't talked much about that to anybody, so I will have some conversations about that. That's a
Okay,
good
and the
question.
only
But I
other
do
thing
know
was just the remote learning page you were talking about, the remote, if the language on the homepage for the remote learning references enrichment, I don't know if that could be maybe tweaked a little bit now that we're kind of past week 1.
Yeah,
It
that's
looked
probably a
like
good
it hadn't
point.
been
That's probably
updated.
something good.
Right, yeah, it hadn't been updated. I think that was the initial 2 weeks. And I had
Okay.
the
Right.
same comment. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
talks about
Yeah, I
like
did-
no credit and all that stuff. Okay.
I will get on that and take a look at that. Honestly, I hadn't even put that on my radar, but I will certainly take a look at that. Yep. That's all that I have for now.
Okay. Any other questions, or we're ready to move on? Okay. Very good. So we're going to move into budget update, and I know that the budget subcommittee has met. I know that obviously there's been a lot of back and forth and discussion as things are constantly evolving and emerging. So I will hand that over to, we have several documents just for everyone to be aware of. There's some notes on budget subcommittee and what was discussed, and then questions that came up as we were reviewing and considering the information as individually that was submitted, and they provided some responses to that in your meeting folder. So I guess I'll open it up. I don't know if Mary Jane, you want to start us out, or the subcommittee, how we'd like to do that.
I can start, and then they can, if you don't mind. One of the things I wanted to talk about is initially, when we had our first budget meetings, we had discussed, moving forward with an increase of 4.4%, which the town was quite happy with. And we all voted, you guys voted for that earlier, I want to say back in January or early February. I think it was January, actually. So then we went back to the town, and they asked us to reduce another $150,000, and which really included cutting a Green Meadow principal. So that was really a big cut to them. But once we figured out the numbers, it looked like our increase now from the budget is now 3.66%. So I just want to let you be aware that we're not at 4.4 anymore. We're at 3.66. So our new budget will be $20,292,760. And as a result of that, we've had a few staff changes that's going to take place as a result of that. But when we did our budget, there were certain things we needed to really make sure that we stayed in line with. We were looking for increased guidance support for each building, looking for increased funding for literacy and professional development and coaching, which I'm a little worried about at this point because a lot of that money was contingent on the Student Opportunity Act, which I'm not sure how that's going to work, but that was part of one of our goals. We also want to expand the computer science and engineering pathways for students in grade 9 through 12. Interested in creating a better model for special education for grades 1 through 5 within 1 through 5 as a co-teaching program. And then we were looking to increase technology, curriculum, and professional development. So those were some of our strategic objectives when we created the budget. And that's really all that I have right now. I do have some of those questions answered, but I don't know if I want to move on to the budget subcommittee at that point. Do you guys?
So we can talk about some of the things that, some of the changes that from the budget 2020, for instance, there was the conversation about we've lost money to facilities rentals. We're also talking about potentially losing funds from the College Gate from the summer, which is $50,000 to $60,000. So those are all pieces that we're going to have to struggle with also. And the Excel program is $30,000 in arrears. So we have those challenges also.
Yep.
I'm a little disappointed. I'm going to just be quite frank here that some of these things appear to be unexpected, to having found out some of these concerns yesterday, or specifically as we're talking about special education paras, the discrepancy in the recommendation of the budget, how that is just coming up now for a conversation. I'm a bit disappointed about that.
How so? You mean is that 3 points? I didn't realize that it went down to 3.66 until myself. So I did the numbers. It just seemed like, gee, that seems like a lot when we looked at it. I didn't actually do the percentage.
It's a big chunk, right, to not notice in a couple of months. So that's disappointing. But also, as we're, in deep pandemic crisis right now, which we know that kids are going to be regressing from special education, that is known, how the thought process aligns with cutting paraprofessionals next year. When I'd like to better understand how that came about as a discussion piece, because of where we are and what we project to be a big lift for students coming back next year.
When I told
I do just want to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do just want to point out that I think those questions were raised beforehand. So there is, some of that is included in that rationale and consideration, and just for reference.
We haven't talked about it as a board. Right, we haven't talked about it as a board.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't, I'm just pointing people to that so that they're aware that that's in there. But so just carry
about
on.
the paraprofessionals, that it was brought up to the school committee before?
Nope. I just said that was a question that was asked, that is with our documents with an answer to help understand the rationale that you're asking about.
It was shared at 3 o'clock today, right?
We talked about the paraprofessionals initially when we had sent the original budget out earlier in the year. That was not new.
Right.
That there were going to be 6 cuts paraprofessionals?
Yeah, I don't recall it being that many.
It's 5. It's 5.
5? Okay.
Yep.
And 3 of them is because we're doing the co-teaching. We're doing co-teaching in grade 3. So it's in return 4. And then isn't one of them because we're going to have 1 less grade? I don't know if we say it out loud. So, but we're doing some restructuring down at the elementary school. So we'll have 1 less class, which means we'll need 1 less para, correct?
Right. And they're not all special ed paras either. They're not all special ed paras.
Right. So one of them, so that's what I would like to hear more about, is the rationale that goes into that. I think that needs to be more spoken about. So one of them is a result of a drop in section. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then that leaves 4. And the reasoning behind that is what?
If we go to a co-teaching model in grade 3, the idea is to really try to have classes be more inclusive and less pull-out services. So reducing the number of paraprofessionals would let us increase the number of special educators. So by decreasing the number of paraprofessionals, we gain an actual special ed person. So there's really, it's not a bad thing. It's we're trying to make students be more included in the information. By pulling them out, they're losing some of the class instruction by the teacher. So we want to make it more inclusive and less restrictive for the students. So having the co-teacher model is really the thought process for that. So that's, and moving other students forward is because of the co-teaching, the other paraprofessionals aren't needed to be in that program either.
So basically we're saying is that we've pre-selected students that are going to be in a co-taught model, and they will be supported in that co-taught model. Therefore, it's being determined now that they will not need a paraprofessional.
Basically, based on the needs that we have, yes, they will be based on that.
I find that a
Based
very
on the-
interesting logic, considering paraprofessional support is really a team decision during an IEP process, a team meeting.
Correct, but they did some work and they said most of these are not one-on-one paraprofessionals. So these are not one-on-one professionals that are being supported. Some of this small group instruction can't happen in the classroom with the students. So these discussions were had with the special ed department before these decisions were made. It wasn't random. And this was made with the special ed director and the special ed team.
As this is a programming consideration change, I'm wondering if this was also spoken to with CPAC?
That I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it the same
I'm gonna say it
rationale,
wasn't.
Isn't it the same rationale that we used for the other co-teaching classes, though, to create
Yes.
a better environment for those students? So it's no different than the other ones that we've created, and now we'll just have a model of grade 1 through 5 with the co-teaching because it's been working in the other grades, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
I think the co-taught class model is a great model. I just, at looking at this juncture when we're, where we're at in a pandemic and not knowing what we're going to be coming to with student needs in the fall, I think it's a very short-sighted consideration where you have kids who might need increased supports in the fall that might not be fully supported in it. So we're assuming the co-taught will absorb these considerations. I would pause and say, what is our plan when it doesn't? And we've now laid off 6 paraprofessionals. And we then, once we have IEP meetings, determine that some kids are going to need to have different skills and increased supports to, overcome their regression. It just is a
Those are
concern
excellent
that I don't know.
Those are concerns, and that happens, every time we have an IEP meeting, to be honest with you. And, we address them as they come across. This was not taken lightly, and when these decisions were made, we hadn't been in the middle of a pandemic either. So
Right, and I know these are not easy decisions, so I
Yeah.
do appreciate that there was thought behind that, and I certainly don't want to. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that now that we are in a pandemic and the situation has changed, I would strongly reconsider or suggest that we look to see about how are we setting ourselves up for the fall to support our students. And if that consideration that was thought about in January makes the same sense in the fall. I agree that the co-taught model, I love that. I think the inclusiveness is totally great. So it's not if or, it just is, I think we need to think creatively of how we're best positioning ourselves for the needs of our students coming into the fall when we know it will be a lot different.
absolutely, positively, I don't disagree with you. But, I was told by the town, let's continue to work on the budget we have. We have not been asked to cut it any further. And to be honest with you, if you take a look at the information I gave, what we have right now is 99% of our budget. I think that's what it said, 99% of our budget is for salaries. So, you know.
And that
the
brings
vast
me
majority-
to another suggestion I actually thought about, because, you know, I think we need to consider some type of salary freeze for administrators for the next couple of years. Definitely FY21, maybe FY22, potentially, and FY23. I mean, it's been indicated, and I know this was talked about in the budget subcommittee meeting, that you've been communicating the next couple of years are going to be tough. This is something that businesses are doing. I think, you know, if we're taking action to cut in the classroom, I think that we need to also, to that point, think broadly in all areas where we can, you know, stop the bleeding.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, that's a great
And I don't know
suggestion. We
if
can
there's
certainly bring that up with the-
administrators whose contracts have yet to be signed for FY21. I would say if there are, that we consider this before that.
Okay.
Lydia, was there something you were going to say or not?
Yes, I feel like, given the current circumstances, and that, yes, we did create the budget prior to any of this happening, and also with the updated knowledge from the Tri-Board Budget Subcommittee, in that the town is also losing revenue due to all the closings, and there are going to be many implications in terms of the overall budget for the next few years, given the reduction in revenue, in addition to the fact that we were already going to be working on trying to bridge a deficit in the next 3 years. I think we need to go back and we need to revisit our budget again, and maybe we don't make the changes that we were planning on making, and we don't institute new initiatives at this point. We really need to just cover our basics right now. We have no idea what the next 3 years are going to look like, and it's not going to be pretty. And I think
Right now,
now
I
is
feel like we
when
don't
we
even know
need
the
to make
next 3
some
months.
Yeah, we can certainly go back to drawing board. I mean,
Right.
we can certainly, you know, go back and take a look at some of the initiatives. I mean, honestly, it really would just be within the high school as far as, you know, 2 teachers, you know, engineering and computer science. Other than that, there's really nothing else new.
Well,
Well, I think also
disagree.
the stipends,
Supporting
like
guidance.
the athletic.
Exactly. I disagree, because I think we need to freeze all administrative contracts. I say that no raises, no changes, and if we can save $12,000 on an athletic director stipend, we do that.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, that sucks for Kevin Caruso, but we're desperate right now. And I think we need to impress upon people how desperate things are going to get. And we really need to take this seriously, and we need to start making some tough decisions. And if that means that Jen Gaudet is part-time curriculum director, part-time principal at GM, so be it. This stuff needs to get taken care of.
Okay. We can certainly go back to the drawing board with the budget subcommittee. We can come up with some things. Absolutely. Again, I was surprised myself that the town wanted us to move forward with the budget we had. So we did. I mean, lots of towns aren't even doing their budgets yet because they don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think also
many,
that
many-
came before the governor announced that he was reassessing his budget. And that was just last week he said that. So
correct. I mean, I know
things are
many
changing
towns
like
are not-
literally day by day. So I think,
Well,
you know,
yeah. We're
it's just
also now in a position where we're going to be at home for much longer. And with that in mind, that
Right,
also shifts
exactly.
the economic impact. There's a lot that's going into this. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
So do you want to meet again, the budget subcommittee, and really go through it line by line? And
Definitely.
we can certainly do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I am not opposed to that at all. Many districts are now trying to go to like a 1/12 budget of what they
Yep.
used the year before. So you know, and, you know, I discussed that a little bit as well. But, you know, I think you're right. This happened before all of this pandemic took place. And as far as now with the extended year closure, I mean, we're looking at other different things. And I do worry about the special ed students, you know, coming back. I worry about all students coming back, not necessarily just the special ed students for getting
Yeah, all
services.
students. It's going
Right.
to be, well,
Yeah.
I was just to that point, you know, I was, you know, I appreciate the creativeness about the, you know, possible model with the guidance counselor. I thought that was really, you know, at Green Meadow. But then, I, you know, I started thinking about it. I think the guidance is going to have her plate full next year, potentially, with her own caseload. And so
Yeah, that wasn't an option. We weren't going to do that.
No, but it just like, instead of having that second administrator, I know she was going to be helping at some point, but I just think that that is even going to be expanded potentially. And we need to account for that social piece that, you know, leaving that available for one-to-one student potentially.
Okay, sounds good to me. We can set something up, no problem. And, you know, we can
So what I hear
bring
is
Brian
part
on
of
board
the,
for that.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. So it sounds like
So I don't think we
essentially-
can do the budget meeting on May 7th then, because I think we have to go back again. I mean, I don't think
The
it'll be ready
public
by May
hearing?
7th. Yeah.
so we should shift the public hearing. I
don't
gotta
know if we
say,
can get it
that's,
done that
that's,
If
Yeah.
the town meeting isn't going to happen until the 23rd, is it?
of
Is that- I don't
June.
know.
Yeah, they had to shift their meeting, so it might make sense for us
So
to
we
need
can
to shift
bump
ours
ours
anyway.
out.
I think it's June
Maybe the beginning.
13th.
Oh, is it?
June
So even if we
13th is
did,
the
like,
town
the
meeting and the 23rd is the town vote election.
Is the
Election.
town vote.
Yeah, town election.
So even if we
Sorry.
did it close to the end of May, maybe there'll be a little bit more information that comes from the state. I doubt it, but maybe. So maybe we should
mean,
have.
do we
a-
need
a
to-
subcommittee.
Sorry, so
Are there certain times?
Mary Branley, you finish your thought, and then could Natasha go right after that? So, because we're kind of talking over each other,
No,
sorry.
I'll-
So did you have
Yeah,
something?
sorry. Well, right. We'll have a another budget subcommittee meeting next week. I want to have the same conversation that Jennifer Gaudet we were having yesterday about the Green Meadow facilities, or 2 days ago. I don't want to shoot from the hip. I don't want us to put Band-Aids on things. We really need to think about, you know, yeah, it's going to be a heck of a year next year, but I also don't want to put us in a point of no return, that we're spiraling down. So we just need to be really, really careful that we're not, I mean, maybe not improve things, but at least keep them, you know, have them be stable. So that's all. I just want to throw that out there, because I for one, I mean, if we, for example, we're talking about the co-teaching, which has been working really well, and it allows the kids to stay in the class. If we're exchanging 3 paras for 1 teacher, it's the same dollar amount. It's just that there's, you know, there's a few kids that are going to get help versus the whole class. So we just really need to think big picture, as bad of a situation as it is. That's all.
Well, I think the paraprofessionals, from what Mary Jane, you just said, they're not one-to-one, right? So they
No
do support more
one-to-one.
than one kid
Right.
as well. I mean, again, I don't know the right answer either. I just think that it just needs more of a conversation now that we have new information and new understanding. You know, that's what
Yeah.
I'd like to
I mean,
really see
oftentimes-
more about.
Yeah, oftentimes these students go out with small group anyway, so this is kind of the small group could happen in the classroom instead of being pulled out, and that's really what the special educator would be able to do, in addition to, you know, teaching with the students and being right there, not have to go out elsewhere to try to fix something that maybe they remembered, you know, earlier in the day, right? They'd be right there to help. So that's the advantage of that.
Yeah, I know that just from prior rollouts with the co-taught, one of the concerns that has been raised by families is that they had a para that was essentially one-to-one, although it wasn't written in their IEP as one-to-one, and that when their child got assigned to a co-taught, the para was then helping multiple, that's the co-taught model,
Right.
but that their child was not getting as much help as they were. And I just wonder in this year, going into next year, under our current predicament, how that fits together in a way that where kids might need more assistance.
As Mary Jane said, all the kids are going to need more assistance next year. So.
Yeah. So I
Right,
do want to just
all
be,
more reason to not cut paras, because we're going to need them in various classes.
so it's a good thing to discuss. It sounds like the charge for the subcommittee, to go back to the subcommittee and look at the current situation as we understand it as best we can, and try to encourage highs looking towards September. Mauro, you haven't gotten to say anything. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to say.
Yeah, so I agree about taking a look again at the budget and, you know, how these especially the special ed, how they're structured. I think that the co-taught model is fantastic. But I am concerned about the fact that if we don't do that type of model that we had already planned on, what does that mean for what else? What are we going to cut instead? And I'm worried about that part of it, because it sounds to me like, you know, we're going to have, you know, possibly more that we're going to have to cut over the next, you know, couple months into next year. And
Maybe more.
that's I'm really concerned about that part of it and how that's going to affect, you know, our whole school system. So, you know, I think it's great that that you guys are going to go back and try and look at everything again. I think that would be helpful considering everything that we're doing or that's coming up over the next few months. But I definitely am concerned about how, you know, if we don't make some of the cuts that have already been suggested, what else are we going to cut instead? So.
Mary Jane, can I ask?
Administration.
Sorry, Lydia,
Go
go
ahead,
for it.
Lydia.
No, I just wanted to say the cuts we make are administration. We're supposed to be trying to cut as far away from the classroom as possible. Cutting pairs is not far away from the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I agree to a point. You still have to have certain levels of, teachers can only be within their classroom doing what they're doing within that classroom, and they do that to an excellent degree. Everyone has their role, that's all. And I don't disagree either that we don't start looking again at, return to looking at administration as well, starting with the basic idea of freezing where we're at. And so, but I don't feel like I want to be getting into that conversation now, so don't think that I feel like that's, the subcommittee should be able to do that work and return to us. I think we've had a good, we've laid out well some of the considerations around it. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to mention about what they'd like the subcommittee to consider, or Mary Branley, you were going to say something else?
Yeah, it was more, Mary Jane, would you be able to just, not that the teachers don't have enough on their plate, but before our budget subcommittee meeting, I'd love to hear from the co-taught classes at the other grade levels, what they have seen, the benefits and maybe the flaws of having the co-taught. Like,
Okay.
with our conversation of the paras versus the co-taught, and so
Well, there is a para in the co-taught classroom sometimes, correct?
right, but that I just want to
Sometimes,
get a
yeah.
synopsis from the 4 other different levels, just to say, okay, you've had your experience now, so that we can better look at this, you know, 3 paras versus a special ed teacher, that kind of thing, before our meetings.
And to add to that, I'd like to understand also how many times they feel that maybe having an additional para in that class has been necessary.
Yep.
Right? Because if
Yeah.
it's not always just one special ed teacher and one para, like, are they needing to bring in another para? Then we're really not saving a lot with cutting always.
That would be great, thank you.
I will be happy to do that, no problem. No, I think it's important because I do think financially in the next couple of years, it's going to be quite significant. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I think we can go back and look at, and, take a look.
One thing I think is more pressing would be the freeze of administrator contracts.
Mhm.
Because I think that for FY '21, I don't know, have anyone for FY '21 been signed already?
Nope, it's too early. They don't do it that early.
Okay, so I think, I don't know what that deadline normally is, if it's 60 days or whatever, but it's probably coming up rather soon. I think that might,
Coming up quickly. It's coming
yeah,
up
I
quickly.
would think that-
Can we vote on that right now?
I would like to understand what the dollars of, what the different roles and the dollars for each administrator who is going to be having a renewal for FY '21, what that savings would be. I know that there was some reorganization potentially that happened at, in one of the schools. And so,
We did
again, I
save
think
it
it'll
out.
be
Yeah.
yeah,
That was
the whole
$12,000
committee to maybe get that dollars
Yep.
projected.
I can read that off to you. I can read that off to you right now.
I don't know that we want to get into that right now. I think it might be better
Okay.
as a follow-up discussion, because we're going to need to meet again fairly soon, right? Does that make sense? to
I'll
folks?
It
put
almost
in
feels
the
like we need to
document.
meet next week anyway, probably.
I agree.
Because I know that the other thing that which is separate but budget related, is now that we have an extension, the preschool tuition, and how we had agreed or committed to revisiting that if it's extended, and I think that will need to be done on the next meeting as well.
Mhm.
Received a lot of feedback on that already.
Yeah, I have people have sent me some feedback as well, and I'll be sending that out to you to take a look at.
Yeah, so maybe that will be on the next agenda.
Yeah, I got some things today, so I
Oh,
will. So I'll send them to you. I didn't put them in my notes because I wanted to gather up the information.
no.
Okay, very good. All right, so I think that we've got, and at the end of this meeting, we can figure out a next meeting date. And there's going to be another subcommittee meeting. We probably want to try to do that next subcommittee meeting before we meet again, right? So for the budget subcommittee.
Also,
Yeah.
to give us time to get information back from the subcommittee and process, because I didn't.
Yeah, definitely.
It felt tight today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Mary Jane,
Mhm.
I have, can you repeat the dollar amount that we're getting from the town? The 3.66% was 20 million what?
Hang on, let me look it up here.
Lydia, just so you know, it is in our folder. It's the document
Oh,
says
okay.
question about.
I looked. I didn't see the amount. It was
says
4.4% on that document.
Initially, the town said by taking the 150,000, I just want to explain that. Initially, the town said taking the 150,000 was a 4.1 increase. But when I did the math, and I kind of just took that at face value. So this is why I'm saying I didn't, look at it until I went back and said, gee, this seems like it's more than 4.11. And that's when I came up with 3.66. So it's not that I waited to the last minute. I really took it on good faith that 4.1 was what the new budget was going to be at. So,
I thought the 4.1 was the adjustment for the facilities director or facilities manager, and that then there was an additional 150,000 on top of that they asked us to get rid of.
So the net result of that was the 3.66.
correct.
Yes. So it's the same dollars. It's just a different percentage. The way it,
Right. Different percent. It's not that we changed the difference. I just assumed, I went on good faith that it was 4.1, not really doing the math myself, which I should have.
So Lydia, the new budget, it's in SC, it's number 6, SC budget information. And in blue, it says new budget request is $20,292,760.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So there's a lot more to discuss on that. Sounds like for timing, we're also saying that we don't want to do the public hearing. It just doesn't make sense to do that on May 7th.
Colleen, that hasn't been posted yet, has it? No? I know
No.
it took a
Okay.
couple of weeks, like the newspaper.
You muted yourself, Colleen. Do you want me to unmute you?
No, nothing's been posted yet. I still had time to post the May 7th. So
Okay.
And you know us.
I sent them out my weekly emails.
Okay. So I think that's it for the moment on budget.
Mary Jane, if I have anything else, I'll send it over to you.
Okay.
And just again, for folks to be aware, if there was anything else on your mind or that you were just to have in mind that there's some information that was posted in our folder, you may have seen it already, but just want to make sure everyone has that in mind and can review that as you're considering anything else that you want to ask or check in on.
Yeah, I had sent Mary Jane an email before, so I've been sending over her and Lydia pretty frequently.
I think I answered all those questions.
And Mauro had some good ones too, so that was.
Yeah, those in the folder.
Yep.
And I had made some comments to the side of the document, and I think they were overlapping questions. They ended up being covered. They were saturated at that point.
Bethlen, I didn't see the comments. I just saw where you highlighted.
Oh, yeah, no, I made comments throughout.
Okay. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah,
If we're able to get, whenever we are able to meet again, information at least the day before, that would be critical. Just with working at home and schooling kid, I wasn't able to do a lot of processing after 3 o'clock today. And so I feel like
yesterday, so that was we had it last night.
Yeah.
That's why, because it definitely usually I try to get it earlier than that.
so we can talk, figure out timing for our meeting based on when the budget subcommittee might happen. I don't know that we'll be able to, we might need to do that work via email if we are reliant on when the budget subcommittee meeting is happening.
Yeah, I think also I know that the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom are meeting on the same day next week, I believe. So I want to be sensitive to that. And I can't remember exactly if it's
Okay.
is it next Tuesday night.
I have it.
Is it Monday night? Monday, maybe? I can't remember.
It's Monday, 4/27. The BOS are going to meet at 6 p.m. and FinCom is going to meet at 7.
Okay. So no
Cool.
Monday if possible.
We could actually meet next Thursday. We could have our meeting next Thursday, and then that'll allow us to have a budget subcommittee meeting like on Monday or Tuesday afternoon.
That sounds like a good idea.
Does that sound okay? Yeah.
Okay, but May 1st is the next day, and there are certain people that need to be notified by May 1st. Is that not true, MJ?
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, if anything, we can always do the May 1st deadline and just talk to them and say, you will be recalled, those types of things. But it's important that we get that out of the way. Just because they get the May 1st, back when I started teaching, every teacher that was non-professional status would get one, and they would just call them back before the end of the school year. So we can continue to do that, and that's probably the road that I will take, and just let them know that just because you're getting this does not mean you're going to be not called back.
But the
And what about
contractors.
admin contracts?
Pardon?
What about admin contracts? When do
Same
we
thing.
need?
Well, they'll have to be going out by May. I'll have a conversation with them in the next couple of days as well.
Yeah, so we might want to have our meeting Tuesday if possible.
Yeah, that would be April 28th.
But that doesn't give us any time to do the budget subcommittee meeting and get the information out to everybody, Lydia.
Oh, no, I meant the budget subcommittee meeting.
Oh, all
Sorry.
right. Okay, and then have our school committee meeting on Wednesday, the 29th?
Possibly. Unless we do it Monday during the day.
Yeah, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah. So let me go back to the administrators for a minute. So they're all under contract. So the thing that we have to let them know by May 1st is what their salary is going to be for next year? Mary Jane?
Yeah, that's really what it is. Or if you're letting them go, is also probably important by then. They need a 60
Any
day
change in terms of their contract.
Exactly.
All right, yeah, because the contracts that I saw, it didn't talk anything obviously about their it talked about their immediate salary, but not the salary for the following year, of their contract. So but we have to let them know that if there's going to be a salary change. If they don't get notification, then it's just understood that they're getting the same salary as what they're getting now, correct?
I believe they automatically get an increase. I think that's in there. I don't know, Colleen.
I didn't see an automatic increase. It was determined by the superintendent according to performance review.
Okay. Okay.
So
So yeah.
maybe someone should look at each contract, the current
Yeah.
ones, and just, because I don't know if they're all exactly the same.
I read them all today.
Okay. So if you're more than usually contracts.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah, Colleen already told me that. So 1 to 3 years. So I'll take a look at them and see what their terms are and just, put them on a freeze at this point, if that's what you're asking me to do. And then we will take a look as far as the rest of the changes in their contract should be within 60 days.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, Brian is included in these talks too.
Yeah, we've been inviting Brian to he came to last budget subcommittee. He attended our Green Meadow meeting today with the principals, and Jennifer and myself. So yep, we've been involving Brian.
Great. Thank you.
And Brian is present tonight.
Audience.
Yeah.
Hi, Brian. Okay. So
All
for
right,
writing
I just missed that. Mine cut out. Can you say that again, Mauro? Sorry.
Oh, I was just making sure that Brian is included in these discussions.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
So we're going to aim to have a budget subcommittee meeting on next Monday in the middle of the day. And then we're going to have our school committee meeting on the 29th. Is that what we're saying now?
Wednesday, the 29th looks like what.
Okay.
And you'll have to post tomorrow for the budget subcommittee
That's
meeting.
why
Colleen's on it.
Yep.
Okay. And then we just won't post for the public hearing. We'll have to see when that makes sense to do. Also, and then further down, we're going to be talking a little bit about FinCom and joint meeting as well. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about the Excel situation too. I know that there was some discrepancy in that. So just to highlight, get more clarification on that Excel funding piece would be good, because I know over the summer, we don't know what's going to happen as well.
Oops, Mary Jane, you're muted. I'm unmuting you. Wait, I'm trying. Doesn't want to let me unmute you. Okay, there you go.
I got it. Yeah, I talked to the town today about that, and some of the things we may be talking about is furloughing the Excel people. So I had a conversation with Mike Guzzo today, and I've had a contact. Again, that's some of the conversation I'm going to have with Lois tomorrow. So that might be something we have to do.
Okay. All right, so then we're going to move on to citizens' comment. We're ready to do so. All right, so I did receive some, so I'm just going to read them. I just read them verbatim. I do want to say first, sorry, I'm just, even though we're kind of just going, I keep writing down the time just so that I know what we're doing. Okay, so I just want to mention first that we did receive some emails this week of folks that were talking about remote learning and really sharing that they, as we're moving into both within this phase and then moving into new phase, the difference that it makes, and encouraging and asking if teachers are able to do that contact and that connection once a day. So being able to do either they have a video of themselves so that the child gets to see them, or being able to have some sort of meeting every day, that can make a real difference, and the consideration of some sort of virtual learning as we're moving forward. And I know that there's going to be guidance coming out from the state, and that we aren't quite there yet for this, I guess, phase 3 of continuing to the end of the year. I don't know if that will involve renegotiation of contract and considerations that might be brought in as far as getting teachers up to speed, professional development to help them be able to have capacity for some of these things. But I did want to mention that we got more than one comment around that from folks that I was going to speak more generally about that rather than specific to individuals to avoid calling out individual people. So I wanted to share that. And now I'm going to just read the comments in the order that I received them in my inbox. So let me go to that. And if you'll forgive me while I go down to that. Okay. So and forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm gonna try. I have Jessica Teague. She says, Dear Bethlehem, the budget proposal includes laying off 1 special education teacher and 6 paraprofessionals. This would be doing a great disservice to our special education students and likely causing more financial hardship for the district in the future, as more students will require out-of-district placement because their needs are not being met in our schools. Can you please explain what alternatives we have to meet the budget while retaining these essential staff members? In the past, when cutting paraprofessional positions has been discussed, it was justified by the district by saying they needed fewer paraprofessionals due to increasing co-teaching classrooms. How will the district be serving the children appropriately if we are cutting both a special education teacher and paraprofessionals? Okay. So next, public comment. So this citizen's comment is from Hillary Griffiths, who had a few that came in, so I'll read them one after the other. So my citizen's comments is to please listen to the consistent and repeated requests to save money by cutting excessive admins or limiting raises, etc. for admin, as opposed to cutting teachers and paras. We keep learning that those cuts are the ones that hurt the children in the school. I also recognize that the superintendent or school committee may be told by some administrators that the pending cuts are positions that are not needed, but that simply isn't true. In addition, as the needed supports for kids keep being cut, more children need to move out of the Maynard schools, both to tech and charter schools, as well as out of district schools, which ends up hurting the schools financially. Giving kids the support they need will help keep kids and their funding in district. I also don't think that making kids with special needs bear the brunt of budget cuts is fair or in alignment with the town's values. Thank you, Hillary. And I'm going to move to her comment number 2. I also wanted to add a comment that when it comes to discussing plans for holding Excel Fast summer camps this summer, given the coronavirus situation, if non-essential businesses are reopened and people will be going into work, I would err on the side of opening the summer programs if possible, as opposed to being conservative and not. Kids will need supervision and time with others, especially vulnerable kids. I think Mrs. Cohn is fantastic in organizing and think of all the options for kids in the summer. I would trust her program more than any other as far as keeping low ratios, cleaning the areas used, ensuring kids wash hands, etc. I think people would also be amenable to higher program costs as needed to allow smaller groups of children and more supervision. Thanks, Hillary. And then there's one more. I'd like to thank Natasha for speaking up for the needs of special ed kids. The co-teaching model is not effectively reducing the needs of paraprofessionals, and the model doesn't work for all kids that it's being used for. The model doesn't provide the same support kids receive from paras for social emotional needs. If a kid runs off or gets lost, and it happens, a para can go with them and provide the needed support. The core, it says aching teachers, but I don't think that's what she meant. The core teachers are teaching and can't do that. When a child needs to discuss one-on-one social and emotional issues with an adult, teachers can't give that one-on-one time like a parent can. The model doesn't work as well as the school claims. I absolutely support salary freeze for administrators. Renewing administrators or giving salary increases at this point would be so out of touch and complete slap in the face to families with struggling kids. I also support eliminating excessive administrative positions. Having 2 principals and 2 superintendents are responsible for large cuts that should definitely be reconsidered given the budget constraints that will be coming. I also support Lydia's comment not to start new initiatives at this time. Although I think that any administrator contracts that are up this summer should not be automatically renewed or not preemptively renewed. The children need para support, they need guidance counselors. They don't need all the administrators. And then we do have one other comment. And this is a comment from Heather Manero. Given the circumstance, how will we properly assess students and determine their placement for next year? I'm going to just look again, just make sure I didn't miss anything. And please know that these comments, that not only do we see them in the inbox, read them out loud, that we do then, they go to, as an FYI, to every school committee member and to Mary Jane so that they can be appropriately shared and followed up upon. All right. Those are all of the citizens' comments that I have received. So I do want to just, as I've done in the past, just wait 1 more minute, just to make sure there's nothing else that might come through.
While you're waiting, I just want to echo the appreciation for Lois Cohen that was shared in Hillary's, her program, the FAST program right now has been doing outreach to even the FAST students. So I just want to applaud the staff and what they're doing to keep the kids engaged, even at that point. It's really tremendous. So thank you, Lois. Thank you, staff.
Job for many years.
Yep. We got the best.
Indeed. Okay. I don't see anything else coming through except Colleen Andrade, our most excellent support professional, happy professional citizen, reminding me that I should make sure I forward those that came in while we were just in the meeting to her. So she has all those citizens' comments as well. All right, very good. Thank you everyone for those comments and for sharing those with us. And we are going to now move on to Green Meadow roof updates. And I know that we have some information on that in the original, but like the notes on that it was discussed a little bit in budget subcommittee, and that there was some conversation around this in relation to Board of Selectmen and Lydia. It sounded like it was you were able to clarify for them. So would you be the one that wanted to give that update?
Sure, I can. So last week when they were discussing the Green Meadow roof in context of the warrant and the other expenditures that were upcoming, like sewer and water and the fire station, it sounded as though they were going to shy away from really promoting, at the very least, the entire roof and possibly the feasibility study. And last night, what was finalized for the warrant is that the feasibility study will not be on the warrant. However, I explained to them why we needed to do the whole flat roof over pre-K and K, and cautioned them against doing it piecemeal and triggering the 30% ADA review. And Justin DeMarco backed me on that. And so they are going to use $350,000 from free cash to ensure that at least part of the roof gets done. And that would be the pre-K side. And then have a debt exclusion article on the warrant for $300,000 to hopefully cover the rest of the roof or the kindergarten side. The fire station is not on the warrant. The feasibility study is not on the warrant.
Wow, the fire station isn't, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and just to add, Lydia, to clarify for the public, the debt exclusion requires 2 actions by the town. So that's why the concern is that it has to pass town meeting and there's a vote during the election. So that's where the thought was, at least if the 350 passes at town, that's a guaranteed money that we don't, and if the other part fails at one of those, at the election ballot, at least we have some funds to do part of the roof.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I think you followed up and said something to the effect of, okay, the feasibility study isn't going to be in the spring warrant, but you thought that they were considering it for the fall? Or did
I'm not sure anymore.
Okay, all right.
I think we might probably need to recommend that they do. I think they would need
Yeah.
action from
Yeah.
the school committee to considering what the exercise we're continuing to engage. And it appears that not accepting or doing our part, at least trying to get the town to vote, I think is remiss.
So should we put that as an agenda item for next time so that we can,
Yes,
next week?
I
Okay.
think we need to create a document that to say the reasons that we really want to enforce or encourage them to have that in the fall, and then we vote on it.
I agree, Mary.
Yeah, because to put it.
Yeah, Lydia did a really great job highlighting the ADA piece, which Justin reinforced again, that ultimately the building is going to be, needing maintenance along. And so it's going to get triggered at 30% at some point, and it's going to cost the town tremendous more.
All
on
be
its-
on us instead.
Yeah, all on the town, exactly. The other part too, with doing the whole roof, and this is where I think we need to have a discussion as a school committee, is the K-wing being closed potentially for school opening. I don't know if there's a consideration, Mary Jane, where you can connect with Greg to find out if once we secure funding, if they can prioritize the K part first in any project. And so if there is overlap into the fall, that maybe that would be just the pre-K, which is already unoccupied. But maybe at least the K-wing can be reoccupied.
I think that would be a good idea. I mean, we can't close both wings at the same time. You just can't do it.
Right,
And
but at least maybe we can incrementally, I don't know how that can happen safely, but if I don't know if CBI can maybe weigh in on if that's possible to prioritize that section first.
Okay, we can certainly look at that.
And then also thinking about Excel over the summer, if we do have Excel.
Yep.
And the impact of having the pre-K and K closed, or if it's going to impact other areas because of systems being down or whatever. How can we absorb that somewhere else?
Yep, that's a question. Okay.
Haven't we had Excel at Fowler before? I want to say we've
Yeah.
had Excel at a different school.
Last
before.
year, I think when they
Yeah.
did that,
Was it
right?
last
And
year?
It did.
just
So we-
requires a little planning.
It
So we
did.
could do the same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, based on what we're going to be voting on, we'll get that. I mean, what we're going to see at the election, I'm sorry, at town meeting is for that $350K in the warrant from free cash. And then folks will be asked to vote for the remainder in the election.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And I believe they decided that it would be a 5-year debt exclusion, which would result in the
Lydia, if you're still talking, we kind of lost you. Try again.
Looked like she may get disconnected. It was in the Board of Selectmen in their packet last night had different options outlined there. I believe it would be,
I printed it out, actually. It's right here. Yeah. So,
yeah,
yep. Yeah, they did. They had a few different ways that it could be done. So the article says that they're appropriating $650,000 for the purpose of repairing, replacing the roof with, does it say?
there was a separate document that Mike Guzzo put together separately that talked about the options of how that funding source.
For the debt exclusion piece.
Yeah,
And the
and then Justine last night inverted it because originally it was 300, I think it was option 5 potentially. It was
Yeah,
300. Yeah, it was 300 free cash and then 350 debt exclusion, but Justine made a good point of doing 350 in case, you know, the one piece doesn't get voted in at the election on the ballot.
So you could at least do the pre-K wing.
Right, right. At least we get 350 from free cash to do
Mhm.
the pre-K.
Okay. So, and this, forgive me for not understanding this. So I'm asking to understand for the 300 debt exclusion piece where there are the options, do they need to put forth the option to be voted upon? Like, will they?
No.
Okay.
Well, no, I believe they chose, it would be 300K over 5 years at 3.5%. And the average tax impact on a single residence would be less than $20 a year.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. I think, so it's 350 free cash and
Yeah.
then it's 300 debt
Yeah.
exclusion.
5 year at 3.5%.
So it's actually going to be less than $20 because option 5 said 350.
Exactly, that's what I said. It's going to be
So it'd be
less
less.
than $20 a year.
Right.
Right, and the debt exclusion is voted on at town meeting once and then at the ballot also.
Yeah. Immediately following. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so the impact to the community is, and that also was from the prior meeting, one of the reasons why when they're thinking about financial impact to the community was a lot less than the fire station at this time. The fire
Yeah.
station would have been a lot more tax impact. And I think the concern, which was very valid, expressed was that nobody wants the fire station to fail, you know, at town meeting. I don't think that does anyone, you know, benefits anybody. So, you know, maybe giving it a little bit more time to see might garner more support when things
Yeah.
settle a bit.
And I think in light of the raising of sewer and water costs too, they were trying to be sensitive to the fact that a lot of people are out of work right
Yeah.
now, are not having any income, and they didn't want to burden people too much.
There are a few things I hear in what you're saying. One, I just appreciate the Board of Selectmen being thought partners and trying to figure out how to problem solve and consider that. Being responsive, Lydia, to your, and inviting you to be able to be a part of that discussion, to consider it within the context of their meeting. And I think that's, Mary Jane's going to return to consider timing and implications for the summer if there's work going on in the building for Excel, and if we could do the K-wing first, so that if that's how it can work, so that part would be occupied, if they're still working on the pre-K.
One of my
Is there
concerns is,
also,
yeah, I'm sorry, one of my concerns is this is not going to the town until June. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that really throws a wrench in all of this. You know, I'm very doubtful we're gonna be able to get somebody in there before this year, to be honest with you.
I agree.
So,
that could
So-
change everything, but that's outside of our control, right? I mean, we can only go on a path of what we know right now, and if something happens down the road, or contractor, we can't get contractors or bidding, then that's really, we have to deal with it, I think, at that point. Oh, and Greg, also Lydia, right? Greg was going to, he had reached out to CBI about doing a survey for the load. I don't think he had heard back yet about how much that would cost, if that was the other consideration.
Thought they had said that they weren't in favor of doing the load bearing.
They weren't the 2 weeks ago, but it got brought up again yesterday, but Greg didn't have information, and it sounded like, you know, the Board of Selectmen were preferring, and FinCom, to proceed with the roof anyway. The interior is a concern of the pre-K.
So I had a question about if we can't do it this summer, what does that mean for free cash? I thought that free cash had to be used in the fiscal year. So if
Unless
we're
it's
not,
encumbered.
say that again?
Unless it's encumbered.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
So, is there anything else to consider around the roof right now?
So, oh, I was just gonna say, so if we only end up with the 350 free cash and we don't end up with the debt exclusion, what are we saying is going to be done?
The pre-K side.
The pre-K will be, okay, and we'll aim to have that done before school starts. That's our goal.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. all
I think
right.
we need to, though, realistically, I think we need to have plans that worst case scenario, that wing will not potentially be open for September and maybe part of October.
Yeah, some
What-
contingency planning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to, and Mary Jane, you made a good point last night. I know you chimed in as well about, we don't know, returning back to school might be a very gradual roll, phased in, where kids are only here part of, here, versus, so I think that will probably be important to, once that information is, to incorporate that, because it might not be all kids coming back at the same time, and think for context, right?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, and the fall might be viable if we do some sort of staggered opening or whatever it may be, so.
Or mid-August.
Right, a lot is still in the air, and I don't, it's just, I hate not moving forward without answers, and that's kind of where we've been for the last month.
And it all
Right.
comes down to the governor, right? It all comes down to what he tells us.
Well, I guess I would say, and the Department of Public Health. I mean, really, it's, and at what point are parents going to feel
Safe.
that they want to send their kids back? So that becomes the
Right.
other issue. So there's lots of things that are happening, and the fall is going to be quite tricky for no matter what anybody does. So I
Yeah.
just, I mean, I don't think this is going to be a full year, I think, to be honest with you. Until we get to next winter with no more COVIDs, I can't imagine that anything's going to resume normally.
Or no more big surges.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Or a vaccine.
Right, exactly.
And that will also have budget implications that we can't even quite understand at this time.
Budget for 22 is going to be really bad. I can't imagine it.
Mhm.
I can't imagine that
Are
it's
we,
not
okay,
going to
I have a question, and I know some people here, are we saving any money on Xerox? Because I know that has been one of my pain points in the warrant, seeing how much we spend on that. And since we're not using those, that's a contractual piece that, are we still
Yeah,
paying them those
We
astronomical
are
expenses?
now, but I am going to take a look at those contracts, and I am going to call the companies. I hadn't done so because it didn't make any sense for only a couple of weeks. But if we're now looking at 2 more solid months in the summer, at a minimum,
Yeah.
part of that contract includes, service calls. We're not using the things, we're not making any service calls. So I
Right,
will
it's
let you know
thousands of
at the next,
dollars.
I will let you know at the next meeting.
Please
Thanks,
do,
Terry.
because I saw it at the warrant, and I was like, oh my gosh, they look exactly the same, but we haven't been in the building.
Right. But again, it's the same way a lot of things. You have to keep your HVAC running. You have to do some other things. You can't not do some things. But I am
Yeah.
taking a look at that, and I will have information for you at the next meeting.
That'll be great, Irene. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So then, if there's not anything else on the roof for right now?
Not that I can think of.
All right. The one thing that did make me think of, and I think I mentioned it via emails, we might want to consider whenever there's something that is school committee related. We've had members that are taking upon themselves to attend the meeting, but I don't know if we want to officially, we could continue that way, or we could officially have someone that's kind of liaising with the Board of Selectmen, or like playing that role, or, something to consider. We could talk about it next time, but I do appreciate people taking that time and doing that. I know Natasha does that regularly. Lydia has done that. I know other members have done that as well over time, and I know Mary Jane's and attending a lot of these meetings. I'm sure others. I've not been able to do those I would attend one as I needed to, but I'm not just doing it regularly myself. So I'm very appreciative of the people that are, and know Brian's been attending those as well.
And Mary Jane as well. I know she's been on pretty
Yep,
much.
I just
every
mentioned her that she's been attending and needing to hold that space for us as we're moving forward in so many ways. So we're very grateful.
There's so much moving around. I like to hear about, like live, the conversations, because sometimes it helps me process a little bit where things might not get lost in translation.
Okay, so if we're done with Ruth, then I think we're gonna then move on. The next thing we had was the proposed joint meeting with FinCom. Just so everyone's aware, I mean, we have so many things we've been trying to discuss, but because I've been trying to be timekeeper, it's a little, this being remote and automatically recorded, a little different than us holding some students late into the night, but it is 8:10 now, just so everyone's aware. But we do have 15 minutes left of business on as per the agenda timeline, but just so that you're aware. All right, so proposed joint meeting with FinCom. Natasha, you had suggested we have this on here to be able to provide some context for that meeting and considerations around joining them, just so that you understand, for people to know about the emails that have just gone back and forth. We were trying to schedule something where Ken did reach out and ask if we could do a joint meeting and include the leadership and include school committee members. And he was thinking, I asked him if he wanted it to be before the public hearing we're now not going to have, if that would be useful. And he actually thought the further out, the better was his thinking, because we'd have more, because things are changing so fast and evolving and shifting literally by the day. He thought we might have more information at that point. Is a little further out that we could go. And then the same with trying to do, we were considering a tri-board, full committees, tri-board meeting with all members. And they were talking about the beginning of June, recognizing that it wasn't going to be able to impact the warrants. It was going to be a conversation for us for what's next and looking ahead at a point in time when we might have more information in this evolving process. So just for that, for where things are at as far as from trying to put things together. And then Natasha, did you want to provide other context or anything?
Well, now that we are moving the public hearing, I think that the dates proposed probably need to be revisited because we are probably going to redo our budget considerations potentially. And so I think to have an effective conversation with FinCom, it might be helpful to make sure that we are aligned first with what now that we're looking at the budget again before we circle back.
So we can definitely talk about that in just one second. I'm looking at the dates just to see.
The 27th was the one day, the 11th.
Yeah, the 11th and the 18th. Yep.
The 4th was a maybe, but I don't know if that was ever decided as a possibility.
They hadn't, so they were still waiting. I was still waiting to gather information from everyone on their availability. So we hadn't gotten to whether or not they were going to have that additional meeting or not. I was just trying to in the meantime. So, in any case, so the latest one out as a possibility was May 18th. We might feel that we need more time than that, but can you just help me understand, you were going to tell us a little bit about more what your understanding of what they were hoping to accomplish in the conversation.
I think he wants to invite the school committee there to discuss the budget conversations. I don't know if this is an annual exercise. It sounded like it normally is.
Done it before. Yeah.
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 Okay. So I think that
Okay.
it's consideration of it being an annual exercise that happens, but also timing it well. And I think it was whether it's before or after our public hearing. I think that leaves it to the school committee to decide that.
Yep. So, well, since we don't know what that is just yet, Just from his perspective, he said that he thought it could be better wait until later, as I mentioned, just so the numbers and issues had more time to bake as far as meeting with them to discuss it. So it might make, we might
Maybe we
decide
should
that it makes
rebate
sense.
first.
Yeah, we definitely wouldn't want to meet with them before we rebake. I wouldn't think so.
So no to the 27th, but maybe we decide at our next meeting.
And then I guess the second question, that I think that could work well to try to see at our next meeting what could make sense. And then that question would be if it's before our next public hearing, so that, which I think from our perspective, I feel like it could be helpful to have that that discussion with FinCom publicly before we then have our public hearing, just to give the community like a little more.
Yeah.
But that's just what occurs to me. But
I feel the same way. I feel that it gives that, conversation on how the leadership in the town is aligning on these financial matters. And I think it sets a good, context to before we have a public hearing, so we can make sure that we're presenting, similar information in the needs and that we've already conveyed to them.
any other thoughts?
Agree. To see
Okay.
how far out they would be, I mean, I guess we have to stop by saying when we want our public hearing now, and then we'll go backwards again and just ask them for a date prior to that. So maybe we can figure that out next week after we've had our budget subcommittee meeting and have that information. if that
Yeah.
sounds-
So maybe in the meantime, I can just let him know that that's where things stand, that we're not going to do a public hearing on the 7th, May 7th at this point, that we are revisiting, rebaking, returning to the drawing board in relation to the budget, and that next week we'll look at when we would set the public hearing, and we'd like to consider meeting with them before that, because we think that would be helpful to the process to do so. How's that?
That's good.
Okay. All right, anything else on that then? I appreciate, I mean, it's nice that it is new within the last few years that we are meeting with them directly. So it's really nice that that's happening.
It's a good thing too, because like Natasha said, we go in collectively. They totally understand, ask us the tough questions, but then fully understand where we're coming from. And then we can go collaboratively before everybody.
Yeah, and it's let's say, it's the largest cost driver of the town, and it's a lot to wrap your head around if you're not if you're not in it every day. And I feel like FinCom's really trying to understand, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, and they are balancing it also with the other budgets of the town as well. And so they have that broader view that is helpful to, convey when we need to hear other conversations of town happenings.
All right. So we're good on that for now. Okay. And the final agenda item prior to adjournment is members' comments. So just so people know, we've allotted 10 minutes on the agenda, but obviously people need to say what they need to say. So I guess we'll start with whoever wants to shout out first.
I can, if you want.
Oh, Mary.
I had a couple of questions actually from Mary Jane, I guess, and Jennifer. But so in conversations with a couple of people yesterday, I was mentioning how my little neighbor was so excited about on Thursday, they're gonna, have a Zoom meeting, or I guess it's a Google Classroom, and get to see friends and that kind of thing. And but he made the comment, he said, yeah, he said most of the kids are there, but some of the kids aren't able to. So I think it's probably because they don't have access to Wi-Fi. And somebody that I saw yesterday said that they thought there were going to be hotspots that were going to be set up. I don't know how difficult that is. I don't know if it's something that,
That will be a Jennifer and Adam, question. I know they had talked about that, but I haven't heard much about that. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I was actually going to mention something, but I didn't really have enough information. That is what a lot of school districts are now starting to do, setting up hotspots, whether it be in their parking lot, at the local library's parking lot. So that is something we're looking at. I'm not sure that we're there yet, but that is something we're going to be looking at. But again, we have to get, can those kids get there? You know, can they get to the hotspots? That's the other question.
Yeah, I know we spoke with Adam about this morning in our leadership meeting, and he said they have reached out to every single family. And anytime a family indicates that they are in need of a Chromebook, or if the Chromebook they have is giving them trouble, they are switching them out.
Right.
We do have some more on order. He's actually going to go back in the school and scrounge the one he currently has that might be laying around. And many of the companies have agreed to provide, you know, low-income households with free internet access through the school closures. He's been talking to the families and helping them, you know, get this access.
Okay, all right. And maybe it's just logistics and the kids just, you know, the parents are in a conference call or something at work.
Right.
So but my first thought, because it coming out of the mouths of babes, you know.
Right. Yeah, that should not be a problem in Maynard. Where you're hearing about the hotspots is more in Western Mass, where they don't have even broadband, never mind Wi-Fi, and that's because of how rural and isolated it is. So that's where they use the cellular hotspots more. Maynard, there should be no place in Maynard that I can think of that can't get regular, you know, internet and Wi-Fi access.
Yeah, that is the case. Comcast has them everywhere. Comcast has them all over Maynard.
Okay, yeah, it was just a case of whether or not these same kids could have access to Wi-Fi. But if you're saying that you know, it's being available free, it's just, you know, setting them up in that.
Right, it's having them contact the right people to make it happen.
Right. And then the other thing, and I know I brought this up with Jennifer the other day too, but I guess it's maybe still something to follow up. It appears as though maybe some of the teachers are doing the Zoom meetings versus the Google Classroom. And I know I mentioned it to Jennifer, but then I heard this again yesterday. It happened to be from the same people, that it seems as though some of the teachers maybe are still doing Zoom. So I just throw that out there, just if you can just follow up, that would be great.
Instead of Google, you mean?
Yeah, instead of Google. Yeah, they're doing the Zoom. Yeah, so just, yeah.
At least for one of the teachers for one of my kids has been doing Zoom, and they have, similar to here, where you have to have a password to get in.
Okay.
So, so I don't know if that makes a difference, the fact that they're using a password instead of using the Google Meetups.
Okay, yeah.
Either way, I'm going to have, I'll be talking to Adam about that, so.
That would be great, thank you. And then my last two were just the Fowler Honor Roll. To see that was so darn cool. I love going down the list and seeing all the kids that I know and just talking to them afterwards and saying, good job. So that was great. And then just a high five again. I went online today to see the remote learning experience at the different grade levels, and to see the collaboration that the teachers are putting together to create these lesson plans in that, I was incredibly impressed with the way they must be working together to come up with something, you know, concrete for the different grade levels. So it was, again, just a shout out to everybody in the education system, everybody that's working so hard for our students in Maynard. So really, really appreciate it. That was it.
Okay, great. Next.
I'll go.
Oh, Mauro, you go?
Go ahead, Natasha.
Okay. So I, again, wanted to say happy Administrative Assistance Day for all of our wonderful staff. Colleen, again, shout out to you and everyone who supports the people that need to be doing and getting some necessary work done. We wouldn't do it without you, so thank you again. I did have a question about, or I don't know, nothing that will be answered right now, but I know that there are teachers who are opting not to do Google Meets for whatever reasons that they need to make that decision. But I also wonder, what are we doing at the school level to support the emotional social piece for those kids where maybe peers and other areas are getting it? It seems like an equity or inequity piece that I don't know if that's something that's having conversations in each building on how that can be addressed. I speak personally, I know my daughter, the whole 6th grade team, none of them are doing it. And so, you know, what does that just have for a child for the next 2 months who does no connection? So I'd like to hear more at some point in the conversation of how we're looking to do that for kids in other grades as well. I think sometimes it's even class to class. So there's you know, the elementary school, some teachers might be comfortable for whatever reason, or they have different needs. And then some kids, you know, don't have that connection. And so I really hope we're supporting them in some other way socially at the building level if we can.
Natasha, can I piggyback on that?
What?
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
I had a couple of parents ask me if it was possible for their kids to join other classes' Zoom classes because their own teachers weren't doing it, but other teachers in their grade were. And they wanted to know, the kids just really want that connection. And so even if it's not their own teacher, would they be able to join another class?
Okay, those are really good questions. I have, we're meeting tomorrow with the MEA, and I can have some discussions with them, because some of this could be, you know, some teachers are more comfortable than others, and a lot of it was with the negotiation. But let me have a conversation with them tomorrow and bring this up and see if I can come up with some resolution. As far as the kids that were not getting the supports they need for social emotional learning, we're hoping we identify them individually, but if they're not connecting with each other, I do see that point. So that's interesting. So let me connect with the MEA and come up with, see how we can work that a little bit. We're meeting with them.
Yeah, especially as we've extended now, so that
Yeah.
now it just feels more, you know, it feels a little bit more of a void. And I think I know Fowler has been doing a great job trying to do either having a bingo or whatever, but I don't know if we're ensuring we're connecting with all the kids who need to be connecting for that. I know we're just putting it out there as an optional thing, but so just creatively in all the buildings, I think I would like to see something more regular that would be great.
And maybe, just to piggyback on that also, maybe if the teachers that are feeling uncomfortable, if they could also be included in that meeting, they might say, oh, gee, this is fun. And it might just kind of give them a, you know, new sense that, gee, it's not that difficult and the kids are really responding to it. So.
Or they could collaborate with teachers who are more comfortable.
Mhm.
Exactly, same.
I
Yeah.
think those are great suggestions, and I'm certainly going to bring them forward and seeing what we can do. And I do think some people love doing it, some people do not. But again, ultimately, let's see how we can get everybody connected, because socialization is going to be important for a lot of these kids. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, definitely.
When the teachers are doing.
One second. It looks like Irene might be trying to speak, but Irene,
Yes, there is one other consideration that's important. When you're doing a Zoom classroom or a Zoom meet, that is a 100% synchronous thing. So if you have kids in a home where the parents have to be online because they're working, or you have 3 or 4 siblings, they can't all be online at the same time. So just keep that in mind. You know, the equity goes both ways. You know, even if you are doing it, there may still be kids that are left out, even though you're doing it.
Yeah, I don't think there's like it's not an easy solution to it. And I think that's what we're trying to get. There's sensitivities we want to be. I know that teachers are doing a lot of work and effort, and to Mary's point, the lesson plans that they've been providing have been, you know, tremendous and take a lot of work. Just based on feedback we're receiving, how do we balance that in a way that respects the abilities of what they are able or are not able to do, while also meeting the needs of students socially, emotionally? And I don't know the right answer, but I think that we need to dig a little deeper on that. The other,
that out there.
oh yeah, no, thank you. The other thing, actually, Irene, now that you're talking, thinking about budget conversations, I'd like to hear more about the CARES Act for the Education Stabilization Fund at our next meeting as well. If you can potentially elaborate on what we might be receiving to the district.
Yeah, I will.
Any-
I have some idea. What I need to do is find out when we might expect it and how it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, because I'm sure that's going to have, impact to our conversations on budget, where we might feel some relief, either I don't know, staffing or computers, all the money that on the computers that we're having to buy. I don't know how that would work, but I just would like to hear more about it.
Ways.
Huh?
Irene,
I'm sure we can spend it in 100 ways.
Irene, didn't you say that you thought that money might be contingent upon either not laying people off or not furloughing employees?
That would be for this fiscal year. So in other words, any decisions you make for a following budget year, that's fine.
Okay.
This fiscal year, and even if we furlough the Excel employees, they're coming from a revolving fund. They are not direct employees of the school. So that
Okay.
will impact our ability to collect any money for CARES.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the other piece is that now that we have all these avenues for online access, electronic medium platforms where things are being shared, I know, Mary Jane, I had shared with you, but concern about the vast amount of social media pieces that fall under the umbrella of Maynard Public Schools. And I'd certainly at some point like to hear an update on that as well.
Natasha,
Yeah.
the policy committee is meeting next Friday, and we are discussing exactly that.
Oh, good. And I saw that there is speaking of policy, is Fowler having a school council meeting?
They are.
That's another thing we're discussing.
Okay, because I saw that posted at the town, and I didn't know if that was essential business, and it just looked different than how we are needing to post stuff. So I was a little confused.
Yeah, I questioned that as well.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go,
Mara,
Mara.
Okay,
Go, Mara.
I don't have a whole lot. I just, I wanted to reiterate, like I did last week, about how great the teachers have been with communicating with students and parents. As I said, I've gotten multiple emails from the majority of all three of my boys' teachers, which has been really great, just to kind of keep on top of things, even though both my high schooler and one of my middle schoolers does not really need it, but it's good to just check in. One of the things that I wanted to bring up with now that the fact that the school year, the way that we're going has been extended, is parents being teachers and how that's really affecting the parents, especially for parents that really need to kind of be sitting next to their students the whole time, and how that's affecting their work life and, all that, even just day to day of doing, dishes or shopping or, making dinner or whatever. And whether or not there's something that we can do for the parents, either, hey, can you reach out and, talk to somebody or whatever. Just the stress of having to be a teacher, that I'm not a teacher. So, it's stressful. So just wanted to kind of put that out there, if there's anything that we can do to help the parents kind of get through this also. And then I wanted to thank everybody else that's here tonight, to thank you for all that you've been doing. And that's it.
All right, Lydia.
All right. Well, again, I would like to say thank you to our administrative assistants. And I learned today that it's Administrative Professionals Day, which means it's a water umbrella. So not just Colleen, but also Irene. And retroactively, I would like to thank Michelle as well.
Yep.
So, Colleen, you have been so essential and so fantastic to work with, and I can't thank you enough for helping us, you know, organize documents and make sure that we have what we need, and just following up on stuff. You're fantastic. So thank you so much for that. And if we ever get to actually see each other again in person, we will do something very special for you. And I also would like to thank Mary Jane and everyone for, I know that this is overwhelming and I can't even imagine how stressful this whole time has been. And there's so many moving parts and it changes all the time. And I just want to thank you for your dedication to working on the curriculum and dealing with the teachers and the unions and trying to sort things out, especially given the fact that you are only here for 1 year. And as an interim, I think it's very, very nice. We really appreciate that you are putting so much effort into making everything run smoothly.
Don't make me cry, that's enough.
What?
Don't make me cry. That's enough. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And you suck. And so there. All right. No more tears. Okay.
I'll try.
And then also last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, this isn't school committee related, but they're talking about how the businesses in town are really, really strained, and the importance of trying to support them. And if you order out and have a good meal, post it on Facebook, spread it around, let people know that the businesses, some of them are open, some of them are not, but the ones that are open are really struggling, and everyone is going to need support if we want to keep a thriving downtown. So I just want to promote awareness to the fact that everybody is struggling in this time, and we all need to be here for each other in whatever way we can.
Said.
I'm done.
Thank you, Lydia. I feel like there's a lot of just dittos that I could say, just so much that you all said. So I guess that we mentioned that we're going to be doing a policy meeting on Friday, so folks are aware. That's usually at 9 a.m., a subcommittee meeting. For everything that everyone's been putting in, there's been a bunch of budget subcommittee meetings. We had one this morning. You're going to have the tri-board budget subcommittee meeting tomorrow, or this meeting tonight. Just there's a lot of work around that right now. I'm very grateful. And I did have a question about virtual, just considerations as we move forward, Mary Jane, as we're looking at remote learning. And I say this fully understanding the absolute complexity of this, and having some friends who are teachers trying to navigate and figure this out within their districts too. Would we be potentially, is the contract as it said it, would it be amended, or would they negotiate a new contract? What is that process as we move forward, or do you not know yet, depending on the guidance that comes out?
I don't think we'd have to do anything.
Okay.
I think no, we're not going to do anything. I mean, I'll have discussion with them tomorrow, but it'll be pretty much be to the end of the year, the contract we have.
Okay.
I think it was worded that way too.
It was, yeah, it's actually
Yeah,
Okay. So any considerations that come up along the way is more, if they were willing to, they could amend to shift based on feedback and conversations, like some of the discussion we've been having, and as teachers are getting, if they're gaining more confidence, as we've all been thrust into this online environment, would that be possible or no?
I can bring it up to the MEA tomorrow. You know,
I mean,
it's really about the comfort level for the staff. I know, you know, this is new for them. And a lot of
I
them
know.
are very, a lot of them, you know, the privacy is an issue for some of them. You know, the Department of Ed is not you know, recommending that type of ed learning anyway. You know, they're really, it's just hangouts. They're not looking for, you know, face-to-face teaching. If you look at their guidelines, unless they say something on Friday, and that may be different at this point. But right now, that's not what they're recommending.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I don't even necessarily, I guess there's two different things. There's like synchronous learning, like remote virtual learning, but then just more of the connection point and being able to have that and just the, here, let me just voice and verbalize the, here's what we need you to consider for the day and ask questions to clarify what they're being asked to do, which is a little different than the actual, you know, trying to teach online,
Right.
you know? So anyways, that was just a consideration. And I say that fully respecting everyone's in very different circumstances, but just understanding it from the community perspective and how much of a difference that's made. And as we consider that we're now moving forward to the end of the year with this, you know. And then my daughter burst into tears when she found this out, you know, like.
Oh my gosh, everybody started crying. I cried yesterday a lot.
Yeah.
So did I.
I mean, and this is what teachers feed off of their children in person. Like it's everyone. It's just so hard. So I just want to recognize that we're all in different places and that it is very difficult and everyone's really stretching and rising to the occasion. So as everyone said, just the infinite gratitude for that. I want to recognize, moving on, Lydia, who created, and you may have noticed her subcommittee minutes tracking document, and she has that for everyone. So as we have subcommittee minutes coming through, we can process them correctly and ensure that they're getting approved within subcommittees and taken care of. So we can make sure that everyone's looking at that again. And I know for budget subcommittee, and we'll need to go back and ensure that everything that we've been doing this year has been tracked and properly approved and then posted. So.
And you need to let me know who needs editing privileges from each of the subcommittees. Colleen has editing privileges and she's gone in and she's added dates and other information that she has, but I need to know who, because just for open meeting law or whatnot, I don't want all of us to have editing privileges, unless you think that's fine, in which case I'll do that.
I think it's just sharing data. It's not really opinions, right? It's just updated or not.
Yeah, so it should be all right for everyone to have access because it's a process operations thing. It's not.
Okay, I'll change access then.
Yeah.
It's not a deliberation.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's the word, not deliberation. Yeah, and then I do love the idea at some point of us trying to see maybe we can get Betsy on coming up with resources for parents too, since they are clearly in this for the long haul now. I don't, you know, this is not, it's difficult for everyone trying to figure out and stretch, but it certainly would be awesome if they had some way of being able to help parents consider this. But, and the last thing that I wanted to, that arose for me was at some point considering how we're assessing for next year. And I don't know what that looks like either. I'm sure that's, you got to get going with this next iteration of phase 3 and then considerations around that. But I thought that was a very good consideration.
Yeah, we had that discussion with the admin team this morning, really moving forward, you know, how are we going to, you know, assess where we need to start next year? I mean, where do we begin? So yeah, we had that discussion today.
Yeah. Oh, and also there might be lessons learned too that might be helpful for if teachers are trying to figure out from other districts, some surrounding districts that are trying to already do some and I know that's not a new suggestion that you've already been having some of this come, but I'm thinking, I know particularly in terms of some of the remote connecting pieces and trying to figure out the best way to do that, because I know it can be a total like, it can go really, really zoo-like and haywire and not like work at all, depending on how you can structure it and make it work. So that's it. That's all I had. All right. So unless there's anyone else needed to mention something.
Mary Jane, we need to schedule, I think, negotiation subcommittee because of the custodian contract extension. I think Mauro, I just thought about that tonight as well, as we're talking about custodians. That's only up until the end of June. And
Right.
so,
Yeah, we extended it by 1 year.
Oh,
So
okay.
extending it one more year potentially.
so
Okay.
Sarah, yeah, I think circling back to Sarah on that would be helpful.
I will circle back to Sarah.
Do we want to see if,
Do we
Say it
want-
again?
do we want to see if Brian has any questions or comments?
Oh, great idea.
Oh, yeah, Brian.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Brian.
I don't know.
There.
Here.
He's unmuted in case he cares in being put on the spot. I don't know. He might be
I
like,
like being put on the spot. I have listened the entire time, but it's kind of nice being on mute sometimes. And I would echo everything that's been said in a variety of ways. I know everybody I've been in contact with, Mary Jane and Jennifer and several of the school committee members and Irene and Colleen. And everybody's been really helpful and getting me up to speed and including me in pertinent conversations around hiring, budget, more so specifically budget recently. And I'm anticipating those continuing. We had a good conversation this week with Rob Rulo, new principal for the elementary school. And we definitely, and I think you guys, this conversation in the last couple hours, the same conversation is happening in every town across the country probably, but definitely across Massachusetts in terms of budgets and going back to the square one to really look at what do we need, what can we do, and how do we work together with our respective towns to push a balanced budget that meets the needs of the students and the community as a whole and is in line with all the collectively bargained agreements that already exist. So I'm glad to be here, glad to be part of the conversation. I know I'll be talking more, soon with Mary Jane and Irene and Jennifer and school committee about recommendations and options moving forward. But from everything I've been part of, you guys have a lot to be proud of. Maynard's been doing a fabulous job in terms of the remote learning and what the teachers are pushing out to students and the interactions, and you guys are real thoughtful about everything. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
all right. If there's nothing else at this time, I just have to say, Mary Jane's been also so collaborative and like, it just really, one, engaged and invested, but also including and collaborative, including Brian. And I just think that's very remarkable. And I want to acknowledge you for that as well. So.
Yeah. Thank you, MJ.
Yeah,
Don't
ditto.
cry.
Don't cry. You are terrific. We're very fortunate to have you.
Oh God, don't cry.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So on that note, it's 8:47. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
That was, wow.
Second.
Okay, so I got Lydia and Mara with a second, and then we will adjourn by roll call vote. So, Mary Brantley,
Yes.
Mara Hogan,
Yes.
Natasha Rivera,
Yes.
Lydia Clancy.
No. Yeah.
Going.
Just kidding. Yes.
Tesla Houlihan, yes. Okay, we adjourned at 8:48. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
See you later.